Good morning. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. It's a brand new Thursday morning, and we thank you very much for starting your day with us. It's the next 2 hours of discussing some of the big political conversations, even as we count down to May 29th, which, may be also June 12th celebrations. We'll talk about that some more. My name is Elvert Ayambem, and you're welcome.
And I am Osaugi Ogbowan. Yes, it is 6 days until we, of course, celebrate. Well, I don't know if we're going to celebrate, but it is going to be 6 days until we mark 1 year since the inauguration of the current administration of President Bola Tinubu. And, of course, Nigerians have mixed reactions, as to how far and how well the government has fared so far in the last 1 year. You're also welcome to share with us, right, if you have your thoughts on how well the government has fared. I would like to hear from you, right? Quickly tweet at us this morning at News Central TV. Let's know if you are completely impressed or disappointed with the government's run in the last 1 year. We have Mazino who's going to be sharing with us breakfast headlines. Good morning, Mazino.
Good morning, Osaugi. Good to see you back, by the way. Nice. And, of course, Olive, good morning to you as well.
Good morning. Good to see you as well. It's been 1 year, almost 1 year of the current administration. And on X, I saw some of the trends and some of the tweets people were sharing, and I think there's a gross sense of dissatisfaction from a number of Nigerians. Looking at, first of all, the performance of the ministers, looking at life, the cost of living before the current administration got into the power. In fact, there was a comparative analysis that was done in terms of the prices of goods and services. So a number of products were x-rayed, their prices at the beginning of the administration or January last year, and their prices at January this year. And we've seen like a triple of these amounts. Yet, the income of Nigerians hasn't increased. So there's some form of gross dissatisfaction that is in the air.
Well, I do agree with you, Olive, but then again, you have to also balance this out by giving some of the very factual factors here. Now, the current administration is going through what should have been done by many administrations from before it. So you can imagine the amount of rot that they have to go through. We're sort of like in the eye of the storm. This is not my argument, by the way. This is also argument by people who are out there who are also looking at the scene and looking at how everything is transpiring currently. So I say, perhaps, maybe, give it a bit of time. Let's see, because all these processes being put in place are, well, they seem to be, well, good units of what do you call it now, that should work, but only if we give it time, and let's see how it works. However, the most worrying bit might be the fact that we're suffering through it, and then the increase in hikes in taxes or prices of this and that, and of course, without the increase in salaries, that could be unbearable. But I do understand. But I still consider this the eye of the storm.
Yeah, the thing is, they're two separate, things entirely. The government, of course, came in and made certain moves or changes with, the way the country was run, with subsidy and, of course, with the CBN's policies concerning the Naira. And that basically completely set the tone for how Nigeria's economy has been in the last couple of months, and of course has increased our inflation to what it is today. That's one thing. Then here another thing is, of course, on the 29th of May, these ministers, all 42 of them, are meant to share their accomplishments with Nigerians, and so each and every one of them is meant to at least tell Nigerians how far and how well they've run their ministries in the last 1 year. Of course, aside Better Edu, who of course is still suspended, the rest of them will have a chance to share. I don't know if all of them, will blame, the fuel subsidy removal and whatnot, for maybe failure to achieve much with their ministries. That's why I said there are two separate arguments entirely. The president made that announcement on the inauguration day. That set the tone for where we are today. But of course, there's the Minister of Health, there's the Minister of Foreign Affairs, there's the Information Ministry, there's the Tourism Ministry, there's the Solid Minerals, there's the Blue Economy. There's so many of them that would have to tell Nigerians what they've achieved in the last 1 year. I've seen some of the analysis online, that is pretty, heartbreaking. I saw, a report, I think it was on the Tribune, that was saying that the Minister of Works, David Umahi, warned contractors to go back to work as one of his achievements. And I don't know if that is something that we should be proud of. But they would have the opportunity, and I hope that they understand what is at stake and how much patience Nigerians have, within the next 3 years.
Well, we're looking forward to all that explanation, like you said. Well, I don't know if to say that perhaps maybe they have accomplished much, but I guess we'll find out on the 29th of May.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm sure that we will find out. And it's not, for me, it's really not completely writing them off.
Yeah.
For anyone who has done well, we'll celebrate them. If the Minister of Health, Ali Pate, has, made certain moves in his time there, it's good to celebrate them. But I would like to see that they know when they started. These are the metrics with which we started, and this is what we've achieved in 1 year. This is where we're going in the next 3-4 years.
I can't wait to see the scorecard of the Minister of Power, Dillabo, and see exactly what
exactly. It would give Nigerians a sense.
And he better not add sharing bags of rice to that.
No, I hope that it wouldn't. Well, the point is, it will give Nigerians a sense that they actually understand, the time frame that they have and what must be achieved in that time frame, because nobody has time to waste, basically. And I hope that the president also is willing to let some of these people go if after 1 or 2 years.
Because that's the what a number of Nigerians are banking on, the president's ability to quote unquote select the right people and fire the wrong people. So if after 1 year, when we're seeing that you don't have results, that should be commensurate to the amount of work that is expected or amount of results expected.
May I ask both of you? May I ask both of you, what would have been the one factor, if it was attended to properly, that would have given you the most joy?
Power.
I have mine, but I want to hear from both of you.
Power.
First.
For me, it would be power.
Yes.
Yes.
Osarage, what would it be for you?
I mean, same thing, power. Insecurity, and of course,
just one, Osarage.
Mine would also be
You're
power.
asking for too much.
Mine would also be power.
Yeah, power, because if we can solve Nigeria's power problems, you would see the massive investment it would attract. There are lots of businesses that are folding up because they cannot sustain the power cost. We're talking of small and medium enterprises, and we see that these are like the backbone of Nigeria's economy. A lot of them are shutting down. Even the big businesses are complaining. Also, to mention that, when we solve it, it's also going to impact the agricultural sector, because the number of these farmers who have their produce will then have the power to sustain their harvest, to be able to preserve their harvest.
Exactly.
But now a number of them will have to resort to chemicals, and they will run at a loss because their products will not be able to stay for long. So power is a huge problem. This Band A, Band B, bandits and all the rubber band that they are doing, a number of Nigerians are still complaining. Some have said, yes, it's working, but I've seen those who would say that they're paying for Band A and they're not getting Band A light. So if we can solve power, I will be very pleased.
I do agree with you, actually, and I'll tell you one thing, a personal experience. For the past 1 week, we've had restored power where I live. We didn't have that from 2 months before that. It was terrible. We had to rely on generators, and of course, you know the situation with fuel, it being scarce or expensive. However, in the past 1 week, I think I've had a new lease on life. I feel better. I get up more refreshed. It feels good.
When there's no electricity, you are frustrated. It's almost like you can't do anything. You are sweating, you are pacing around, you are exhausted, you can't be creative. It's uncomfortable.
And so questions will be asked of, of the Minister of Power. But I also want to say that there are certain things that you cannot, just explain. Like I said, a couple of months ago, show working. And the reason I'm saying so is because we've seen in the last couple of days, Total, Nigeria, of course, not Total Nigeria, Total Energy, the oil and the IOC, basically saying that they would rather move their investments to Angola, because they've realized that that seems to be a more favorable investment destination for them than Nigeria. These are signs that things are not working in Nigeria, and it's not. You cannot convince any person otherwise, because these things are pretty evident with the number of people that are rushing to bring their businesses here compared to the number of businesses who have shut down and are leaving Nigeria. And one thing that I always, cannot fathom is the fact that these businesses are packing up, they are leaving, and we do not have the presence of government to be able to sit down with these people and say, let's talk.
What's going on?
What's the problem? What can we fix? In what ways can we make the business environment more conducive for you as a multinational company that has run business in Nigeria for decades? But we see them just pack up and leave, and there's no answer from the people who are meant to be keeping these people on ground here in Nigeria. And so these are signs that it's not working. But the 29th would hear from them. Mazino would see you in a bit with Breakfast Headlines. I'll share with our viewers this morning what our top stories are.
This morning on Breakfast Central, Nigeria's foreign reserve rises to $520 million in 1 month. And court accepts hearing of Shaibu's impeachment suit as following what's going on in Edo State. But that's not all that we're looking at this morning.
Also, Cross River Assembly impeaches Speaker. And of course, a bit of drama occurred yesterday at the House of Assembly complex. Also, the Senate to probe Bayelsa gas explosion. That's one of the things that we're also looking at this morning. We'll also be sharing with you what the major stories are, making headlines across the newspapers. Remember, you could also join the conversation at that point.
Coming up on the news this morning, very interesting. Let's start with the headlines here. Begins in west of the continent, where Nigeria's organized labor on Wednesday reduced its demand for an improved new minimum wage from an initial 615,000 to 500,000 after an agreement could not be reached at the tripartite committee meeting on Tuesday. The deputy president of Nigeria Labour Congress Political Commission, Professor Theophilus Ndubaku, disclosed this on Wednesday. Ndubaku said that the Labour team was compelled to reduce its demand to ensure the federal government meets up with the arrangement. The embattled Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly in Nigeria, Elvert Ayambem, has stated that he remains the Assembly Speaker despite being impeached by 17 members who had already signed a notice of his impeachment. The motion for his removal was moved on the floor of the House by the member representing Calabar South 1, Effiong Ekarika, and seconded by Charles Omang. However, he described the process as unlawful in a statement released on Wednesday by his chief press secretary, Matthew Okache. Meanwhile, officials of the Department of the State Service, the Dragon Squad, and personnel of the Nigeria Police Force have taken over the complex of the Cross River State Assembly. This was following the impeachment of the Assembly Speaker Elvert Ayambem. Ayambem was impeached over alleged gross misconduct and financial misappropriation. A federal high court in Abuja has granted the former commander of the Force Intelligence Response Team, DCP Abba Kyari, 2 weeks bail after 27 months in detention. Kyari is expected to conclude his mother, Yachila Kyari's burial rites. The court subsequently set Friday, May 31st for the determination of his bail application in the trial over drug-related charges filed by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency following his arrest over 2 years ago on February 14, 2022. To Edo State now, Justice James Kolawole Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja has granted permission to the impeached Deputy Governor of Edo State, Philip Shaibu, to join the Speaker of the State Assembly in his suit challenging his impeachment before the court. The judge also granted order to the former Deputy Governor to join his successor as a defendant in the suit. Justice Omotosho dismissed the objections raised against the motion on notice by the Speaker of the Deputy Governor for being frivolous and without merit. And the Senate at Wednesday's plenary urged the federal government to make provision for a special intervention fund for maintenance of transmission lines in the country. For over a month, the northeastern region has been in total darkness due to destroyed key towers of the power line along the Jos-Gombe route. The Senate's resolution was sequel to a motion on the urgent need to address the vandalization of transmission lines of the Transmission Company of Nigeria in Northeast Zone, sponsored by Senator Manu Haruna and 14 other lawmakers from the zone. In more news, demonstrators on Wednesday responded to a rally called by the Journalists' Union outside the Tunis court as columnist Bohen Bassay and Murad Zagidi trial commenced. They are being prosecuted under Decree 45 for disseminating false information with the aim of defaming others or damaging their reputation. The National Union of Tunisian Journalists consider this decree to be an attack on freedom of expression. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Back to you, Olive and Osaoge.
Thank you very much. Disgraceful scenes at the Cross River State House of Assembly yesterday. Really, really embarrassing. And I saw a lot of people say that it's 2024. You would expect that we would have moved way beyond these types of incidents. But to cut them some slack, I did see a clip a few days ago, sometime last week, somewhere, I'm not sure what country exactly it is now, where there was also a crisis in some state house of assembly in some other part of the world. So it's not just in Nigeria.
Were they fighting physically?
I mean, someone snatched a document. They were trying to pass a bill, and then one person snatched a document and ran out of the house.
I saw that. I saw that too.
So it's not just in Cross River State. It's just embarrassing seeing that these things are still happening. And of course, it seems like there's more drama going to be coming out of there in the next couple of weeks.
I guess this will be the next river state, in quote, that we're going to be looking at.
Just might be.
Well,
Mazino, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, Sagi. Thank you, Olive.
Thank you. All right, this is Breakfast Central, and if you'd like to be a part of our conversations this morning, at some point during the show today, we open the phone lines, especially when we're reviewing the papers. You can call in and share your thoughts on any of the stories that we're making the front pages of the papers. But for now, we'll go on a break, and when we come back, we're delving into our top stories proper. Welcome back. The Nigerian Senate has begun probe to investigate the massive explosion close to Barianube gas processing facility in the Yenagoa local government area, Bayelsa State, and pollution of the environment. According to Benson Kabowe, who raised the incident on the Senate floor, he laments the need for urgent action and urged the federal government and the operator of the pipeline to provide medical assistance and relief materials to the people affected by this pollution and shock. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu reports.
Nigeria's oil-rich Bayelsa State has once again come under the spotlight. This time at the Senate, following the resumption of plenary, where the recent pipeline explosion, which affected some communities and caused a massive fire, was discussed by the lawmakers.
Alarmed that there were huge explosions from a crude oil pipeline on Tuesday, the 14th of May, resulting in an inferno in the vicinity of the gas facility, and this constituted a threat to the safety of the facility.
Some members of parliament called for urgent measures to be put in place to prevent recurrence and provide for those who were affected by the explosion.
We'll have to, maybe the committees, relevant committees, will have to conduct an inquiry, not the executive, because we don't believe that the executive understand the challenges that our people have been suffering all these years. But maybe if the joint committees look into the matter, we can have a report to look at and then interface with NMPC, now whatever it is called, and then the operators and the regulatory bodies to see what steps can be taken to determine the adequacy of the measures that have been taken.
To our people that are living around there, I will also emphasize that there is need for an urgent step to be taken, especially the evacuation of our people that are living there.
The President of the Senate described the situation as a worrisome event, saying the subsequent pollution to the environment is a cause for concern.
Because it is from there that the gas is processed and sent to the Bonny terminal for export, to a very big source of foreign exchange earnings for our country. Because the people have no place to run to. Otherwise, they go into the Atlantic Ocean.
The Senate called on relevant federal agencies to quickly provide aid to the affected victims. In Abuja for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel Bagudu, for that report. Now, moving on to our next story. The Federal High Court in Abuja has ordered an expedited hearing for a lawsuit filed by former Edo State Deputy Governor, Mr. Philip Shaibu, to overturn his impeachment by the State House of Assembly. Shaibu was impeached on April 8 for allegedly leaking top government secrets. This action came despite a High Court hearing scheduled for 15th of April to address Shaibu's his challenge against the impeachment.
Now, in response to Shaibu's application, the court directed that relevant documents be served to Governor Godwin Obaseki and the Edo State House of Assembly through substituted means. At the resumed proceedings on Wednesday, Justice James Omotosho scheduled the full hearing for June 3rd and ordered that the new Deputy Governor, Omobayo, be added as a defendant. We're joined this morning by Public Affairs Analyst Ikemesit Efyong. Good morning and thanks for joining us, Mr. Efyong.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, just quickly share with us, what the, little details of the case, would be from Philip Shaibu.
Philip Shaibu is challenging his suspension from the People's Democratic Party as well as his impeachment, right? All because he has evinced an interest to contest in the in the Edo State governorship election, which is coming up later this year. Right, as an act of party discipline, the state chapter of the party, right, in effect suspended him, and his governor, right, with whom they have shared a ticket for 2 terms, orchestrated his impeachment by the State House of Assembly and his replacement. And so what Philip Shaibu has been, when these impeachment proceedings were imminent, so this was before they actually occurred, Philip Shaibu filed a suit in the Federal High Court, right, basically asking that the Edo State House of Assembly, as well as the governor, as well as the clerk of, said House of Assembly, be restrained from carrying out that action. Now, that action has already happened, and what Philip Shaibu's counsels are arguing before the court is that, because his impeachment is now a fact, and him not remaining as deputy governor and him not remaining a member of the PDP will fatally harm his ability to run in the upcoming governorship elections, that the court should in effect expedite the proceedings so that it can deliver a judgment early and quickly enough for it to be applicable both politically but also in terms of going back to the deputy governorship of Edo State.
Yeah, but just to clarify, all right, according to news report, the reasons given for his impeachment, were that he leaked government secrets. Is this one of the things that has also been spoken about? Because you're saying, he was impeached, or, at least according to him, he was impeached because he, of course, is attempting or trying to contest for governorship of Edo State. But, the reasons for his impeachment are completely different.
I mean, it could very well be a fact, but the leaking of state and government secrets, right, is not only a matter of executive process; it's also a matter of law, right? So, the leaking of government secrets is it is an offense under Nigerian law, right? And probably the right process for the state government in this case to have carried out would have been to have, charges instituted. And in the process of doing that, an impeachment becomes a bit more tenable, right? But this has been handled politically, which raises the fact that a lot of this might be political, machinations, right, which are sort of occurring right at the back scene. So even if that is the ostensible reason from the government's perspective for his impeachment, just the way that process was handled and the fact that Philip Shaibu is still a free man, he can go wherever he wants to go, he can meet whoever he wants to meet, and there is no legal proceedings that has been instituted with respect to his ostensible leaks of government or state secrets, that simply suggests to me that that was probably, a justification which was brought up after the fact and not really what motivated his impeachment to begin with.
Okay, so now let's talk about this case. Are there any implications of Justice Omotosho's decision to include the new Deputy Governor, Godwin Omobayo, and the Speaker of the Edo State Assembly? What are the implications? Is it necessary that this was done? And what does this even mean for the new deputy, the new deputy?
Well, just procedurally, as a matter of these proceedings, right? It sort of made sense to actually, have the new deputy governor as well as the new speaker of the Edo State House of Assembly, right? Added. Remember, a core aspect of Philip Shaibu's case, right, is that the State House of Assembly was one, the ultimate venue of his impeachment, but two, state lawmakers were intentionally and closely involved in the process, right, of his impeachment. And any rectification of that reality would have to happen at the Edo State House of Assembly. So, the speaker of that assembly, right, as the chief officer, as it were, and also as the chief politician, within the state legislature, is a necessary party to this suit. The new deputy governor, right, as a matter of law, is seen as the big beneficiary of Philip Shuaibu's impeachment. Without his impeachment, the deputy governorship isn't vacant. There's no need to appoint a new one. And if the court decides now, and there's really no indication as to how the court may decide in this particular instance. But if the court does decide that Philip Shuaibu was indeed wrongfully impeached, then the competent order to make is that he be restored, and that would obviously nullify this new appointment. So just from a matter of procedural law, right, it was important to have these people. Substantively, right, the court will still have to determine whether Philip Shuaibu's impeachment was, one, lawfully made, and two, whether every process that needed to be carried out in order for his impeachment to be valid was carried out. If there is any part of that step-by-step process which the court determines was unlawfully done, then we should reasonably expect that Philip Shuaibu will be back in the deputy governorship.
Yeah, and of course, still talking a little bit more about the impeachment and, how it also happened. There was meant to be a scheduled hearing to, of course, address the challenge against the impeachment. But the Edo State House of Assembly went ahead and impeached Philip Shuaibu. So, speak a little bit more about that complete disregard for, of course, the court processes.
Yes, correct, right, and a big part of this proceeding actually turns on the behavior of of key actors, especially pertaining to their respect for the law, right, and in this sense, Philip Shuaibu's legal team is on relatively strong legal footing. The courts are really not a fan of having their authority fettered in any way. One of the cardinal principles, right, of our legal and our justice system is that when a matter before a court of competent jurisdiction, what we call in law, the rest or the subject matter, right, of that proceeding should be left undisturbed until the court makes a final determination. Now, the legal team of the State House of Assembly had challenged the jurisdiction of the court. That was tossed out. Obviously, the Federal High Court is competent in these matters. You also had a situation, as you rightly pointed out, right, you have a situation where people went ahead, even though there was a court proceeding, which admittedly and in a bit of gamemanship was quickly instituted in order to stop the State House of Assembly from doing that. So, anyone who was competent or closely follows Edo politics was expecting that, the relationship between the current governor, Godwin Obaseki, and Philip Shuaibu seems to have irretrievably broken down, and impeachment was on the cards, especially since Philip Shuaibu was not the governor's appointed political successor, but still insisted that he was going to run. He was going to, include his candidacy for this upcoming government elections. So in a way, the legal proceedings were instituted as part of the political gamemanship to basically stop the State House of Assembly, and by extension, right, people who feel that the governor is closely involved in this, from proceeding with that. Having said that, once the matter was competently filed in court, state lawmakers were supposed to have, basically, stood down and basically, sought to take this out, right, in the legal arena. And so in that sense, right, I don't think that the judge will necessarily be sympathetic towards the arguments of the defendants in this case, just simply on account of their behavior. Having said that, and this would be my final point, right, the court still has core legal rules and principles that it has to take cognizance of in determining its proceedings. And so while the behavior of state lawmakers may be less than desired, that really would not be the core determination that the court would have to make in this matter. Like I said, the court really has as its job to determine whether the impeachment was validly made or it wasn't. And those matters are a question of law and not so much a question of people's behavior outside of the courts.
All right, so now let's talk about the way forward and what the decision of the court will mean. What will it mean for the political landscape in Edo State? What are we looking at in the maybe next couple months in Edo State?
Well, I mean, the governorship race there is already shaping up to be, somewhat acrimonious, but, almost certainly competitive, right? And personally, for me, I don't think that this moves much. This moves the needle much in terms of, what the current political makeup, right, of the state is. Like I said, Philip Shoaibu is, pretty much a pariah already, the People's Democratic Party circles. And he said that where these proceedings could probably help and support his, his prospects is if it's, if the court essentially determines that Philip Shoaibu is competent enough, one, to run during the elections, even though that's sort of a side question, but two, and more importantly, if he would remain, right, the deputy governor of Edo State. If he does that, he has a bit of a surer political footing. He can basically go to the electorate and say, I beat, my political enemies, I beat, especially the governor who is term limited, so he isn't really running right in these elections, and they are out to get me because I have a plan and an agenda which prioritizes you, the voter, over, a lot of these career politicians. And, let's also remember sort of his antecedents, right? Philip Shoaibu has, while he has been a known commodity in sort of Edo political and national life, right, he has not been a retail politician for as long. So that's an argument that he can make validly, right, and with some credibility, over the course of these particular elections, right? And what a legal victory sort of does for him is that it just empowers him to make better arguments. It may not mean he eventually wins the PDP ticket. It may not obviously mean that he's successful at the ballot box, but it does improve his chances. He's something of an outsider looking in at the rest of the pack, and
kind of hold on.
Victory.
You're talking about the ballot box. The party primaries have been held already, haven't they?
Yes, they have, right? But as is the case with a lot of party primaries in Nigeria, there are many, many things. There are many, many moving parts first with respect to these primaries. And there are many things which one can take to another court, right? And essentially ask that the primaries be validated. I do know on good authority that Shoaibu's legal team is either contemplating or they are in the process of filing a particular case seeking to nullify, right, those set party primaries that you made reference to. And so we have a situation where every step of this political process can be challenged, both legally as well as politically. Obviously, Philip Shoaibu could hitch his ticket on another political vehicle. There's also the zoning equation, right, to sort of recognize with respect to this, right? Philip Shoaibu right now, I believe, is from Edo North Senatorial District. Godwin Obaseki is from Edo Central, right, which is in the current governorship, right? And one of the other key candidates, Olumide Akpata, right, is also an important factor, right, in this. And so there's also this zoning argument and conversation, right, to be made, which Philip Shoaibu would think, right, also puts him in a good position as well. So there are a lot of moving parts to this, and the fact that the party primaries have held does not mean that it's politically sacrosanct.
Well, I mean, there's so much that would happen in the next couple of months before the elections. It's pretty obvious. Of course, with the aspect with Dano, with Hepatari, like you just mentioned, and all of that. So we're looking forward to seeing how things play out. Also to mention, Philip Shoaibu seems to have taken up the same outfit. With Adams Oshomole, that's the outfit they seem to have whenever they're fighting battles.
You're very.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for joining us.
All
right. Now let's move to our next story this morning. The Nigerian foreign reserves have seen a significant increase by rising $520 million to reach $32.6 billion within 1 month. The latest data from the Central Bank of Nigeria reveals that the reserves, which stood at $32.1 billion on April 17, 2024, have steadily climbed to $32.6 billion by May 16, 2024. This marks a substantial monthly increment, reflecting improved foreign exchange and reflecting an improvement in that regard. Though, despite this growth, the official foreign exchange market continues to face challenges due to the scarcity of dollars. You'll also recall that the Naira depreciated by 2.1% to 1,497.33 per dollar, 33 Naira per dollar at the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Market, NAFEM, in the previous week. We're joined this morning by policy strategist, economist, Razak Fatai. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. We don't seem to be able to hear you. Please, if your mic is muted, kindly unmute. And let's talk about this rise. Is this what would you say are the factors to contribute to this rise, and what does it mean for the economy? But first of all, maybe we should be asking, is this a rise that we should be excited about? And I'm asking this because remember when we talked about the Naira gaining strength, and a number of people said it was an artificial or a temporary celebration. So is this something that we should actually be excited about? Is this something that's here to stay? And what would you say are the contributing factors to this rise?
Okay, first, let me ask, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So the first question was whether this is something we should be excited about, and the second question, whether this would continue. So let me start with the first. So if you look at the foreign reserve movement from January to date, we would see that the movements have reflected, many dynamics. The fact that, as a country that is heavily indebted, we've had to pay, service our debt constantly, which in some ways affected movement. Also, we've seen oil production haven't hit a peak of about 1.4 million barrels per day in January, started to decline, which in some ways also affected, our export proceeds for crude oil, and which was one of the reasons why we saw the reserves started to decline in March. Also at the time where, we saw that the central bank was also, playing in the market, in the FX market. But what we're seeing now in the last 1 month, as you've seen, is the reserve is starting to pick up. Partly because oil production has also started to pick up from April after hitting a dip from January to March. We've seen that it has started to pick up. Although I don't think this is something we should be excited about, and the reason is because when you look at the reserve level right now, it's just about $32 billion, which is not very significant. When you look at our exposure, our external financing needs for debt servicing, for exports. So I think for me, before we can even get excited, we should be talking about foreign reserves in the range of $40 billion or upward before we can even get comfortable to say we want to celebrate. So that's it. Okay. Then on whether this trajectory would continue, I would say that it's of mixed feelings in the sense that when you look at the dynamics affecting crude oil production, those challenges are still there and have not been fully resolved, right? Oil prices have started to come down, slightly lately, although in some ways that also impact crude oil, petroleum products, importation price, which would also, come down. But the point is that this is not something we're celebrating yet, right? We still have a very long way to build up, reserve before we can build a resilient economy that is able to better deal with, volatility and shocks that we've continued to see in the market this year. So I would say that, we still have a long way to go as a country, and we just have to continue with this. The CBN will have to work much harder to help attract.
I think everyone would agree with we have a long way to go, aspect. But I want, let's go back a little bit, and talk about the relevance, even of the whole foreign reserve conversation. Why is it relevant that Nigeria is at $20 billion or $50 billion or $100 billion? We're the giant of Africa, that is so we claim. At one time, we were the biggest economy in Africa, but of course that seems to have been reversed now. In recent statistics, we seem to be number 4 on the continent. But tell us why it is relevant that we even have conversations about foreign reserve. If you remember, Yemi Cardoso not long ago, while defending the policies of the CBN, had said that it fluctuates. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. With regards to foreign reserve, using foreign reserve to defend the naira. I'm sure you remember that conversation. So can you help us explain why is this even relevant? Why should it matter that we have $30 billion?
Okay, so this is why it matters, right? The reason why we keep reserve is because like they said, life is a journey. It doesn't move in a straight line. It fluctuates, right? Exchange rates a month ago was about 1,100. Today it's 1.5, right? So that kind of spike is not good for an economy, and it is bound to happen in a context where demand and supply, constantly change. So for me, the first reason why we need to keep reserve is because it allows, it serves as a buffer to help, smoothing out the effect of volatility. But more importantly, the ultimate goal of having, a suitable amount of reserve is because it helps, it helps to show the strength of the country in terms of meeting its external financing needs, right? We, as a country, want to import food, we want to import products from other countries. Also because as a country, we incur debts, external debt, and we need to service this debt. We need to pay our debts. Sorry, my light just went off. We need to pay our debts, and because of that, we sorry, I can just really put on my lights.
No, go ahead. We can hear you.
All right. Of course, we haven't.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. Go ahead. Keep talking.
My baby kicked off my light, so
no, it's fine.
Just one of the. Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is, as a country, we need reserve to help, foster stability and to also show strength as a country that we can continue to, interact with the rest of the world without any hiccup. So. And one of the major considerations we look at in foreign reserve is that is the country reserve able to meet the exports needs? Like how many months of exports, right, can our reserves cover? We'll be looking at, whether the reserves is adequate to service the country's debt, and also whether the reserve is also able to meet, other external financing needs, like, foreign direct investment sometimes will move in a reverse direction. Foreign portfolio investment will move in a reverse direction. Foreign investors that put money in Nigeria also need to repatriate their capital. So foreign reserves is very critical, right? And the more we have, shows that, when there is shock, when the country is faced with shock, the country is better able to respond to it. And what we see with the current level is that it's not adequate. I mean, that's just a simple way to be. It's not currently adequate to cater for all of these. And that is why you've been seeing, all of the fluctuation in the exchange rate. And more importantly, it makes it easier, for speculators to attack the currency, because they still see the country, being very weak. By just looking at the fact that our foreign reserves is not huge enough to address all of our needs. So that's just to see that that's why it's very important to build adequate reserves.
Speaking of foreign reserves, a few weeks, or do I say months back, when we saw a strength or a gain in the naira, there were speculations that the foreign reserves was used to support the naira, even though the CBN governor came out to speak against this and say that it wasn't true, that they weren't using it to support the naira, and it wasn't anything that people should worry about. But would you say that, I want you to react to that, as well as look at some of the policies that maybe have been made in the past few weeks and months, and would you say that there are any policies that have been made so far that would help impact the growth of the foreign reserves?
Okay, so let me take the first one on whether the CBN has been drawing up reserves to play in the market. So for me, I would say that there are several factors that were at play, right? Like I said, oil production started to drop from February, and it dropped significantly from about 1.4 million barrels per day to 1.2, as well as 1.2 in March. That alone is already a gap. It's already a big problem. It's already a massive gap in export proceeds, right? And for me, I think what the CBN did at that time, even though it played in different segments of the market, even giving Bureau de Change BDCs some dollars as well during that period. Even though the CBN played in that market, the injection wasn't that significant, right? And we also had to pay service our debt. So all of these factors contributed to the decline in foreign reserve. But however, I would also observe that, there wasn't even enough transparency as regards, why the result really dropped. So, and I think that's one thing we can really improve on as a country, providing timely data on our crude oil production, on our export proceeds, and also also the state of our international payment. I think if with all of those data, if you get them in a timely manner, it will help prevent, all sort of speculation as to whether this is what the CBN is doing or what CBN is not doing. Then, regards to your second question of whether the government is doing anything to help the reserve to continue to grow, I would say that, while we're seeing them, putting up policies, trying to invest in food, and also trying to address the problem with crude oil, I would say that the urgency is not enough, and we're not doing this at the scale that we should be doing. Right now, I think if we are being serious as a country, our goal in the next 6 months, right, should be to say we want to make sure that we keep crude oil production, right, maybe at 1.6, and then we are able to then say, okay, over the next 12 months, I want to push from 1.6 to maybe 1.8, depending on what the OPEC quota also implies for us. So the point is, as a country, we need to do more, right? So you should go beyond just talk shop, right? Talking and talking. We want to see action. And the only way we judge whether the government is really doing enough is in the result, right? If we are not seeing crude oil production increase significantly, if we are not seeing efforts to make sure that insecurity becomes a thing of the past, which I know would be very challenging to, but at least we want to see progress, right? We want to see, people having access to, farmers having access to inputs, and basically when people see all of these positive signs, it's even helped them to set a better expectation for inflation, right? Because when they begin to see all of these things, coming up, people begin to know that, oh, maybe I should even hold on, in buying this particular good or item, because the price is like come down in the coming months.
The amount of uncertainty definitely, affects, the influx of foreign direct investment. You've seen the story from Total Energy and, of course, their decision to move to Angola, I believe, instead of Nigeria. It is a picture of what a lot of people, a lot of businesses across the world think about Nigeria. So it might be a struggle. Lack of sincerity also with the improvement on our crude oil production, moving to 1.8 million barrels, like you've mentioned, maybe 2 million barrels. I'm sure that these things are possible if we have a government that truly wants to see those improvements. But I don't know if we're there yet. But we'll see how things turn out. Thanks a lot for stopping by. We'll love to speak with you again if there's any improvement and if there's any changes with this. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you again.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Right. Of course, as some, of course, celebrate the improvement in foreign direct, or not foreign direct investment, in our foreign reserves, I beg your pardon. There's definitely others who have a totally counter argument. We'll take a short break. When we come back, of course, we will be wrapping up with the first hour and letting you know what happens in the second hour of Breakfast Central.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. The Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly, Elvert Ayambem, has been impeached over an allegation of financial misappropriation. The impeachment resulted in a free-for-all in the hallowed chambers as the House turned chaotic, with members fighting over the maze.
However, the embattled Speaker has stated that he remains the Assembly Speaker despite being impeached by 17 members who had already signed a notice of his impeachment. Ayambem described the process of his impeachment as unlawful in a statement he released on Wednesday by his, of course, Chief Press Secretary, Matthew Okache.
Well, that's, of course, the document that shows the number of the Assembly members who had signed it. And it's still an ongoing tussle happening there in the state. We, of course, will be looking at this story in depth to see what Nigerians are saying about it. It's one of our stories that we're looking at today. And we'll head to Twitter, or to X rather, take some of your tweets and share some of the reactions that Nigerians have. But yet again, the major underlying reaction we see is it's still a show of shame and an embarrassment to see that the people who represented to be there, or who we elected to represent us, to represent the needs of the Nigerian people, to ensure that they're bridging the gap where the government has been failing, are there mainly for their own personal interests. Yes, he's been impeached on allegations of fraud or embezzlement and the likes, but it just seems...
Just look at that. It says he was impeached because of a misappropriation of 48 million naira, which was meant to be used to pay NEPA bill for the Cross River State House of Assembly.
So at the end of the day, does that not look like everybody there is fighting for their own personal interest? Because first of all, there's the one part of him actually using the money, and really it's 48
those
million
allegations,
naira.
right? The allegations. I don't know if there was a
if I'm saying if these allegations were true, or if these allegations are true, there's one hand, the part of him, but even on the other hand, the bill.
Yeah.
Like
my point, my issue with all of it is, and you could have the same argument with Cross River, with Edo State,
different parts of the
River
country.
State.
Yeah.
I don't remember that there's been any time that there's been an impeachment of the Speaker of the House of Assembly that it was because of discrepancies in developmental ideas for the people. That the House of Assembly members said that we want to make these policies to improve on the lives of the people that we represent in this state, and the Speaker doesn't seem to align with these policies for the people of the state.
Even beyond even the impeachment, in the times that we see them fighting, it's hardly ever about, oh, this bill will benefit the people and it must be passed.
Exactly. And so all of this, that we see, and I say that you could have the same argument with any state in Nigeria that you've heard of an impeachment or a squabble in the House of Assembly. It is all because of political or personal interests.
Yes.
It is almost never because of the people that they represent. And I hope that Nigerians continue to see that every time you see a group of people claiming to be representing you in the State House of Assembly, it is pretty obvious that none of these people actually represent you as a citizen. And I said it last week that these people represent a waste of our time. It's you basically sit in those positions for 4 to 8 years and waste our time.
And then sometimes you're arguing about who is in what committee, who is longest serving. It's just, you said,
National
Assembly, yes. It's basically personal interest, political interest.
Unfortunately.
And their pockets.
And so whatever you're seeing in Cross River now, on the surface, it looks like, misappropriation of 48 million naira. But I'm sure that a lot of people expect that there is more to it than just, that accusation or that allegation, rather, for it to get to the level where they, of course, get physical.
I mean, I saw Portable just jump in defense.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see this, play out in the next couple of days from Cross River. I'm sure there's going to be more developments. The Speaker, of course, has said that he is not impeached. He remains Speaker of the House of Assembly. And of course, I don't know if there will be any punishment for those who are fighting and the one who got knocked down.
And the one that carried the mace.
Yes, it's embarrassing. We've seen this many times. We saw it in River State. We saw it in Edo State. We saw it in the National Assembly even, where Omo Agege, I beg your pardon, of course, was accused of, anyway. it's such a shame.
It is a shame. I'm sure we'll take the tweets later. We'll look at what Nigerians are saying.
A quick recap of some of the things we've spoken about in the last hour, and also what comes next. Yes, we stop by in Edo State, where a court accepts the hearing of the, now suspended or impeached Deputy Governor Philip Shaibu. Nigeria's foreign reserve rises to $520 million, or rises by $520 million in 1 month. And of course, the Senate set to probe Bayelsa gas explosions, one of the things we also spoke about in the first half. But that's not all. In the second half of Breakfast Central, let's share with you what's coming up next.
Coming up next, journalism, digital tech, and AI dialogue is an important conversation to have. And we head to Twitter, bringing you some of the tweets of what Nigerians are saying, focusing on what's happening in Cross River State. And then we'll review the newspaper front pages right next, opening the phone lines for you to join in. Stay with us. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're reviewing the papers this morning, and let's share with you what the top stories on the front pages of the papers are saying. Let's look at the papers. Our first paper this morning will be, of course, this Nigerian newspaper, and we'll look at the top stories, and then we'll bring our guests to you. The big story here says insecurity. Military denies aiding, abetting, profiting from banditry and terrorism. Tackles Katsina governor, rather ask him to substantiate claims. Finally, Abure dislodged as Labour Party chair, ex-NLC boss Umar heads transition committee. Again, Senate gives conditions to reabsorb suspended Ningi. Tinubu's administration supports local government autonomy, says SGF. Minimum wage, labor reduces demand to 497,000. Well, negotiation is going. As federal government, private sector offer 57,000. Naira crisis, UK students face hard times. University ejects students, orders them to leave country. That's all on the front page of this Nigerian newspaper. Let's go to our next paper on the front page this morning.
All right, the Daily Independent this morning says Labour shifts ground, accepts 497,000 naira as the federal government seeks to 54,000. You know, they seem to be very far apart. Tinubu to attend inauguration of Chadian President Debbie. You can also find on this Daily Independent, APC chieftain threatens to sue Tinubu and the NWC over subversion of constitution. Why Benue IDPs may not return to ancestral homes soon, says the UNHCR. Of course, Abba Kyari is in the news this morning. We did report it, that he will be going for his mother's burial rites. And of course, he gets 50 million naira bail for 2 weeks. Federal government implemented reforms to stabilize the economy and foster growth, as the Secretary to the Government of Federation. Tinubu named Shehu Mohammed FRSC Marshal. Tackle insecurity and hunger. Forget 2027 for now, Tinubu told. And
but the question is, will they hear?
Well, Cross River Assembly Speaker Elvert Ayambem has been impeached. Of course, we also spoke about that earlier. Solution to poor governance is more democracy, says Tinubu. And also Turkish Airlines abandoned 300 passengers in Lagos. Suspend operations. There was a bit of crisis over a couple of days ago.
Turkish Airlines. He's in the news again for the wrong reason. All right, let's move over to our next paper, the Vanguard newspaper. On the front page of the Vanguard, Labour cuts demand to 497,000. Federal government OPS offer 57,000. Edo gubernatorial elections. Bishop Omede to lead Labour Party's campaign council for Akpata. Obaseki signs 404 billion naira revised 2024 budget into law. EFCC NBA move to tackle lawyers aiding criminals to launder illicit funds. Solution to bad governance in Africa is more democracy, says Tinubu. I think that's a good place to start. Finidi to Super Eagles. Nigeria bigger than your club. Okay. We have currency crisis. UK varsity sends Nigerians packing. Reps query contractors over abandoned projects after 85% payment. Reform policies have attracted FDI and reduced inflation, says federal government. Lukman at the top. Okay, this one is Europa League final. Lukman's hat-trick clinches historic win for Atlanta. That's all that we have this morning. Oh, no, I can't not take this one. Shetima, Cardozo, Oye, others discuss Nigeria's economy today. I'm hoping that this discussion will yield results. Let's look at our final paper this morning and then bring in our guest.
All right, the final paper we're taking this morning will be the Guardian newspapers as quickly as possible. It says from 9 billion naira in 2006, abandoned National Library to cost over 200 billion naira. 18-year-old construction work. I think the question would be how relevant is that today? What benefit does that bring to Nigeria? Why are we spending 200 billion naira on the National Library? And also CBN reduces duty FX rate 8th time in May as naira trades above 1,500 naira to the dollar. Federal government says negotiation is for minimum wage, not living wage, offers 57,000 naira. Tinubu Obasanjo seek regional integration to deepen democracy. And also Lagos correctional centers overstretched by 104%. Government says, many would argue it's even way more than 104%. INEC knocks SIECs, likens council polls to coronation of candidates. I think we could just go straight into the conversations this morning. We're joined by Theophilus Akatuba, who's a public affairs analyst. Good morning. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, I think I will start with the National Library conversation. How relevant is 200 billion naira investment into a national library for Nigeria today?
Well, it's become 200 billion because, as usual, we didn't do it when we should do it. And a library is a very important asset for academic purpose, for research purposes. We know that we're living in a digital era, but that does not mean, you can see the UK is holding down physical books.
Yes.
They've not, you see, we in this part of the world, we are very quick to move to new technologies. Whereas if you travel abroad, you see that even till today, physical letters are being delivered to homes in the Western world. They use letters for billing. They use all manner of issues. So they are not, so that there cannot be any excuse. I am not with my device. No, it was delivered to your address. So a physical library is very important for intellectuals to even rub minds, because what does this digital media do? If you are researching, you research on your own. But if you go to the library, you might find people of common mind, human interaction. And so, unfortunately, we didn't do it when we should. It's an important asset for academic purposes and for communal academic relations. You know, if you walk from your neighborhood to a library, there's a library maybe in Ogba, and you go there, you meet other men who are researching and studying along same lines. You can share ideas very well.
Yeah, I get, you know, the relevance of a library. I'm just saying, you know, do we still have to spend 200 in today's Nigeria? If we will place things on a, you know, priority list on things that the Nigerian government is to invest in, will a library come up?
But we did 90 billion for Hajj. And so two years of Hajj will give us the library. And
we did 90 billion for Hajj doesn't mean that we should have.
No, we did. So whether you should have or not, you've done.
Okay.
And so you are now asking, should we do library? And so we should do the library for 200 billion. 2 years of Hajj sponsorship.
Okay.
You know, will give us a library that will last many years forward. And Hajj is recurrent. Every year you spend 90 billion and more. So I think...
My point is the fact that we... Do you think the 90 billion naira for the Hajj was a, you know...
You want me to discuss that?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's talk about that.
Why should a federal government spend 90 billion for a religious pilgrimage of one sect, of one religious sect, when we have several of them in Nigeria? Nigeria is a secular state.
Yes.
And so have you asked the people who worship idols, have you sponsored them to a country where they do their activities? You know, we're very discriminatory in this country. We are just a pretentious hypocritical. You can't declare a country secular and you identify two major religions.
Should we even
I'm
be,
a Christian,
should we even be sponsoring, regardless of your religion? Should we even, as a country that is currently struggling with its financial state, should priority be placed, and regardless of which religion, should we place priority on sponsoring people on religious pilgrimage?
Absolutely not. We should not even get involved. It's a very private religious affair. But you see, politicians are doing it because they can't touch it. It goes to the core of their votes. And so the patronage is to ensure the vote, because that community is very powerful. Religious organizations are very powerful in influencing the vote. You have seen what happened in the last election, where the religious organizations got exactly into the fray, and where they made the battle of that election a very eschatological war, as if God and devil were on the ballot.
So, I mean, the point that I'm trying to make, because I don't want to waste too much time on it, the point I'm trying to make is, if we agree that that 90 billion naira was a waste of money, and we shouldn't do that, there are more important things to invest money in, you know, in today's Nigeria. In healthcare, in education, in infrastructure, there are roads to be built and all of that. There's cancer machines to be bought. Then why do we then agree that we should build a library for 200 billion naira?
Because 200 billion naira will educate our people so that they won't spend money on libraries.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
It's because of the uneducatedness. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Oh, well, all right.
All right, let's move on from that conversation and head to what's happening with labor. It's been back and forth. Now the federal government have increased they've increased to 57,000, I believe. Yes. And labor has now come down from 615,000 to 497,000. Are we making progress in this negotiation?
Not at all. It's a charade. This is just a mess. You don't start a negotiation at an unrealistic level. You see, labor should come to Nigerians and say, look, if we do this, this is the possible cost of the wage bill to our government. Sometimes we discuss the federal government as if there are some aliens. No, they are presiding over a common purse. If we agree on any figure, is that because when we say minimum wage in Nigeria, Nigerians think it's just 57,000 naira. Oh, that's very small. No, it's an aggregate of everything. It affects every level and all the myriad of workers. It affects immediately the private sector too, that have to also, you know, move up to it. And you don't have just one employee that you pay 30,000 or 57,000. However, what government is offering is also ridiculous, considering the the economic situation and the devaluation of the currency, this is a poverty management rate, poverty incubation rate, 57,000. But Labour has started very, very unrealistically, and they're looking quite embarrassing. Even if they got 100,000 today, it will look like they failed.
All right.
I mean, shouldn't even, I mean, the current administration, so this minimum wage, first of all, in, President Buhari's time was completely not enough, right? The current administration came in and they have made things arguably 50, 100 times worse than it was
No, they have not. They have adjusted the economy, because when you say they have, as if some aliens came and made life difficult for us. They manage our purse. They've seen what we are going through, and they have said, if we don't do this, we will go bankrupt.
Okay.
Now, that has been done in order to make sure that the weight the country is carrying is, that's where all the campaigners in the election, I was telling people, I was on TV, I tell them, listen to this campaign. You hear that they want to increase the price of goods and services and everything. They want to, can you hear, do you know, media houses educate Nigerians about the implication of these policies. But we were very enamored, or a subsidy has to go. Nearly all except Kwankwanso said he will remove the subsidy.
All right, let's hear from, we have a caller, Elder David calling from Alimosha. Good morning, Elder David. Thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
Labor demand is outrageous. What Labor is saying is that they didn't pay Nigerian worker with 66 million in a month, in a year. It's very funny. It's very funny. Are they actually protecting the interest of the workers and Nigerians as 20 citizens? If the least paid worker with 66 million in a year, calculate that money, it's outrageous. If they are very serious, they will go to the drawing table and negotiate for the interest of workers. And another thing I want to say, I always say it here. Now, there are just killing some people in Plateau State. Nobody is talking of insecurity. Some people are not even talking of how much they are going to receive in a month. We are talking of people dying. Is the issue of minimum wage more important than people are being killed in the north? No, it's a question I'm talking about. This government inherited all these problems. And we are talking of library. 2006, it was abandoned. How much does Obasanjo Billy own? Obasanjo was supposed to complete that library at that time. And it is this same government of APC 2015 that complete all these projects abandoned by the previous government. The second Niger bill that starts from time of Zik, Ekwemi and others. This government completed. Then what no?
For calling, because of time, we need to wrap up there. Yeah. He did, make a point. Killing of people in the Middle Belt didn't even make the headlines this morning. But of course, insecurity, military denies aiding, abetting, profiting from banditry, terrorism.
Yeah, the military as an institution will always deny, because there's never there won't be a military policy that said they want to profit from insecurity. But of course, they should never deny that their officers will be in the business of trading with the war. Individuals, people who see the war as an opportunity to profit. It's not only in Nigeria, all over the world. Even Donald Trump accused the United States military of profiting from wars abroad. Yeah. And so it's part of it. But what I want to say, what is happening in the North is part of the decay and the decadence of our country over the years. Plateau State has always remained in the news for bad reason, especially these two states, Kaduna and Plateau State, where you have a boiling point of the two religions in almost equal proportion or side by side in numbers. This is an unfortunate situation. We are not speaking to the core of it. Why is it that from governor to governor, these things never abate? It either goes down this way and comes up another way, because there's no truth being told in Plateau State. They live in lies and hypocrisy. They've got to sit together. It's not a national problem. It's a problem of that particular place. And they need to wake up to speak to it themselves, because why is it that you are recurring problems? Every year, if you look at the newspaper per year, there are massive killings in Plateau State every year since the time of, even a governor was removed in that state. State of emergency was declared in by Obasanjo. So
this circles back to the conversation, because I remember Elder David was talking about, he made reference to the library. And he said, if I heard him correctly, he talked about why the library is important now, because we're having problems with insecurity, we're having problems with the economy. Although he said something I'd like to clarify, he was saying, oh, is it more important than minimum wage? I think that the conversation about minimum wage is very important. It's not something we should take lightly because people are struggling to feed. A number of people don't have food to eat, and it's money. It's a salary that they're earning that they will use to be able to sustain themselves and their families. So the conversation about minimum wage, conversation about insecurity, they're both very important. I think so. The point there is, should we be prioritizing 200 billion for library
we
have
did
problem
not.
with insecurity?
Somebody placed it in the front page of the newspapers and it caught your attention.
No.
As far as I'm concerned, you asked, we spoke about it because someone made it appear in the front page because there are interests. The newspapers, of course, in this country, sometimes we prioritize news based on special interest. So whoever placed the news there might have a hidden interest and say, okay, we want to push this agenda.
All right. We have a call coming in. Let's take that call. Good morning. Thank you very much for calling. Please go ahead with your comment.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Please, we need you to turn down the volume of your TV set so that we can hear you clearly.
Okay, we're talking on the minimum wage. Okay. I'm talking on the minimum wage. Minimum wage. Yeah.
Next your call, you might have to turn down the volume of your TV set and call back because it's affecting the conversation. Thank you so much. For our subsequent callers, when you call and you don't turn down the volume of your TV set, we can hear ourselves and it affects the audio output. So please call back. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's still look at some other stories this morning on the front page of the newspapers. I'm trying to see which one we should choose this time around. Okay. Okay, let's see the front page again of this Nigerian newspaper. Abure and what's happening in the Labour Party. Finally, Abure dislodged as Labour Party chair, ex-NLC boss Umar heads transition committee. This has been an ongoing conversation for the longest time. What do you think this means for the Labour Party?
Well, once the crisis is able to be resolved, the party should develop its systems and prepare itself for the challenges ahead. The challenges of election, because you see, this crisis is not unexpected because the party had not really deepened its structures before Peter Obi gave it such a prominent place in the polity. Yeah. It was not as if the party was such a fabulous and structurally strong and had all the organs in place. It was a party that grew on the euphoria of the Peter Obi wave and movement. And so naturally after the election, we began to see some of these cracks. Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Let's quickly take this call from Tony Eze calling from Plateau State. Good morning. Thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Benue, I believe.
Benue, yeah.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, go ahead.
Okay. I want to comment based on the Katsina State governor's comment about insecurity. I think the governor is right. But my own take there is that government is not serious to fight the insecurity that is in the country. As I'm talking to you, very close to in my own local government in Tupo local government in Benue State, about almost 6 communities they are not living in their ancestral home. Yes, army is involved. Even if some army is involved, there are some politicians that are involved. There are some people that are on the streets that are involved. So many people are involved. But political will to fight all these things. In a country where a big country like Nigeria, a common domestic problem, we can't solve it.
Yeah.
What if it is the external forces that are coming to challenge us? Does it mean we can't face it?
When you help us clarify, when you say the army is involved, what exactly do you mean?
Hello?
Go ahead, we can hear you.
The governor is accusing that there are some military that are benefiting from it. If some military that are benefiting from it, there are some people that are living on the street that are still sabotaged too. There are some politicians that may be involved. But what is the work of government is to fish all these things out, not accusing. We are tired of accusing. Fish it out and deal with it so that people will go back to their central home. And that is my take on it.
All right. Thank you very much for calling.
I was hoping he would be able to point out exactly what he means by the army is involved.
No, obviously it could. Maybe he's privy to the activities of individual soldiers and who might have been acting out of order. You know, you know, there is this idea of covering up. We have what you call corporate cover-up, covering up by the individual groups that are in a place. We have seen in this country where even if you walk into a police station and somebody asks you for a bribe, and there is a query almost immediately, the entire police officers there will deny that it never happened.
Yeah.
And so they call it such a cover me, I cover you system. And that is prevalent in our country. It's also prevalent in many places where there is war. That's why the military need to be more vigilant, because it's a waste of time for the chief of army staff, for the entire security system to delude themselves that there are no men on the field that may be acting out of order.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think we can squeeze in one more story from the Vanguard newspapers. It's one of the things that we've seen. Edo Gubernatorial Bishop made there to lead Labour Party's campaign council for Akpata. I think since you already spoke about Labour Party before, we probably will start with that one and just pick on that one. The strength of the party, of course, going forward, there's meant to be elections in a bit. Obaseki signs 404 billion naira revised 2024 budget into law. So let's talk about Edo State, Olumide Akpata, and of course, you know, the Labour Party phenomena basically.
Yeah, I'm quite impressed with this electrifying campaign and the youthful targeting of his campaign. But the Labour Party, since the general election, has been receding in its gains. In many of the elections that I've held after then, the Labour has not shown the kind of strength that was shown during that general election. So Akpata has a lot of work to do because Obaseki and his people are quite well entrenched, and they have been doing some things that are interesting. So I wish them the best. I do not see or hope for anything really spectacular.
Yeah.
The Labour Party, because when you look at the elections that took place after, the position, the gains of the party were really, really, you know, they lost a lot of ground. It didn't happen as it happened in the presidential election.
Yeah, I mean, people, you would have, you know, loads of arguments as to why that, you know, may have been, but it may not be a thing that we, you know, can get into. On the 29th, you know, one of the things we started the show with this morning was talking about how Nigeria's ministers are meant to be given a breakdown
of what they have done,
of what they've achieved in the last 1 year. I've seen articles online, you know, that have rated them, you know, and of course placed some of them as, you know, high-performing ministers and some of them as almost irrelevant. What are your thoughts on what should happen on the 29th with regards to that?
Well, I think that it's not enough to tell a story. It's enough to tell it properly. They have to show evidence of what they are saying that they have done. They have to tell us where they met it and where they left it. The country is quite impatient. We really need development. We need things to happen, especially on the front of welfare of citizens.
Yeah.
You know, so the citizens must be seen to have a roadmap. Citizens are only patriotic when they see that the country also is watching over them. And the country needs to have a rallying point why citizens are called to this patriotism that we're calling for. So it is my hope that they will be able to bring both in images and video and evidence of the progress, because a lot of those ministers might be finding their way out of the cabinet after the report that they will give.
Yeah, but do you expect that?
I expect that. Yeah. I expect some of them to be dropped very soon.
Can you name one or two?
I can't name the one that will be dropped, but
no, I mean, can you name one or two that if you were in that position, you would fire them?
No, I wouldn't want to say that. It's not fair to any one of them. I want the empirical evidence of their reports to determine their fate. Anyone who has taken that office and has gone to sleep, the president will surely, because that is exactly what he promised Nigerians. And the minister that is in charge of reporting and monitoring them would have done they will collate their report based on what they are going to do. If I see the cabinet continue 100%, then the president has failed.
All right.
Has failed me in that regard, yeah.
All right. Dr. Raymond, go ahead. Welcome. Dr. Raymond, can you hear us?
Hello?
Welcome. Go ahead.
How are you today?
All right.
Doesn't seem like I hear you.
Still be
Sorry.
asleep. Is 1 year enough?
Not enough, but you must give some report. Not enough to make a determination if the government is doing well totally, but we should be able to know the direction of the government. We should know, for me, I am somewhat impressed because they've been reacting to a lot of the challenges in this country. Not that they have solved the problem, reacting to them.
We have a long way to go.
Naturally, Nigeria has lost a lot of ground over the years, and it will take a lot of bold decisions. First of all, we have not really run this country very efficiently, and the country has suffered, the citizens have suffered as a result of inefficient utilization of our capacity and what is available to us. So I believe. My heart goes out to those in the UK, but I know the story is anchoring the problem on the movement of the Naira. That could be, but there is no agreement between you and anybody when you chose to go to the UK that the currency will remain stable. There's no currency that is stagnant. You should know that you have very imperfect and developing economy, and your currency is always going to struggle against other currencies.
Right.
And so if you were going there because your currency was fixed in those days, the system changed in the middle of the way. I really sympathize with them, and I hope the federal government should be able to intervene for those who are there already.
All right, Mr. Katugba, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to having you again.
It's a pleasure.
We're going to break, and when we come back, there's more to come this morning. Welcome to what Nigerians are saying here on Breakfast Central as we cross over to the state that has been accused of the assembly members not bearing the cross of its citizens. The Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly, Elvert Ayambem, has been impeached over an allegation of financial misappropriation. The impeachment resulted in a free-for-all in the hallowed chambers as the House turned chaotic with members fighting over the maze. However, the embattled Speaker has stated that he remains the Assembly Speaker despite being impeached by 17 members who had already signed a notice of his impeachment. Ayambem described the process of his impeachment as unlawful in a statement released on Wednesday by his Chief Press Secretary, Matthew Okache. Let's take a look at the video. And that was a video right there of Portable jumping over the fence. Sorry, an assembly member just scaling over to sort of calm the situation down. Unfortunately, things went out of control. Nigerians are definitely reacting to this on X. So let's look at some of the tweets to hear what Nigerians are saying. And now, St. Pius says, this is inevitable when you have thugs whose interests override the interests of the people they were supposed to serve. And that's the general sense that we're seeing on social media, with people saying that a number of these assembly members are not represented. Can we please see the next tweet? Are not representing the interest of the people. Collins Okpara says, this is an absolute disgrace. The Cross River State House of Assembly is turning into a circus. Lawmakers brawling over the maze while serious governance issues are ignored. Our representatives should focus on serving the people, not engaging in petty power struggles. The next tweet is from Tom T. He says, fighting for their self-interest. At the end of the day, that's what it looks like. And let's see another tweet. Maurice Moyen says, I thought we had left this era of fights in the State House of Assembly. And this is happening now in Cross River State. That was, of course, reacting to the videos that were making the rounds. Shameless people, embarrassing us Cross Riverians. What they collectively did to Cross Rivers last 8 years should have caused them to hide in shame, but they have eaten their shame. And this from another tweeter, another member on Twitter, or another tweep, as they call them. Seriously, there's no longer respect for the rule of law in Nigeria. How will investors or foreigners take us serious? And this is from David Utolo. We have another one saying, if the so-called elite, knowing they are live on TV, have decided to throw caution to the wind and resort to political mortal combat, Nigeria probably needs the help of Daenerys Targaryen. And this was very funny because for those of us who watched Game of Thrones, Daenerys Targaryen was the mother of dragons, I believe. And it was a reference to it and talking about the impact that she had in setting the people free. So I would believe that that's what this person is trying to say. But the general feeling and the general mood that is shown or that is expressed by Nigerians is one of disappointment, gross disappointment. We see this repeating itself in different parts of the state. We've seen this happen not just in Cross River State, but in different states across the country. At the end of the day, it's a reminder to Nigerians that when you're voting politicians into office, remember that you are voting these people to represent you. And I'm hoping that we can start to hold them accountable, that we can start to remember that the office of the citizen is the highest office of the land, because these people were put in office by you, by your votes, and therefore they should be there to represent your interests. And when they're not doing that, there should be moves to get a number of them out of the position that you elected them into. But this is what Nigerians are saying about what's happening in Cross River. We, of course, share a number of these thoughts on X at News Central TV, and your reactions are what fuel the conversation. So please do well to always engage with us on X when we put out these thought processes. That's what we have today on what Nigerians are saying.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now, 2 artificial intelligence tools are about to be released by the Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development as part of its Dubawa program, which aims to improve the accuracy and efficiency of fact-checking procedures in Africa. The program covers fact-checking, verification, and media literacy. In light of the fact that malevolent actors are using technological advancements globally to enhance their tactics and abilities, the Dubawa audio platform and chatbot constitute a noteworthy addition to the battle against misinformation.
The launch will happen on the 27th of May 2024 at the Abuja Continental Hotel in Abuja, coinciding with the CGID's first journalism and AI conference. Media think tanks, journalists, IT specialists, and other stakeholders will come together at the conference to examine the opportunities and problems presented by the constant infusion of AI technologies into the media. Joining us to shed more light on the launch is Akintunde Babatunde, the Director of Programs, CGID. Thank you very much for joining us. Good morning. Okay. What was trying to sort. We, of course, will be sorting this out. We're going on a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll have a conversation on this. Welcome back. It's time for us to get into the conversation about journalism and the role that artificial intelligence plays. And joining us to have this conversation is Hilary Umoziri, Communications Manager, CJID. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Artificial intelligence has become a very important part of conversations, not just in journalism. In different parts of the world, we're seeing how the evolution of artificial intelligence is changing the way business is being done. So I'd like you to talk to us about how it will impact, how journalism is being carried out now and in the nearest future.
Again, thank you for having me. So I think, just like you mentioned when we started the conversation, is that artificial intelligence is indeed changing the landscape, changing the media landscape, changing how news is done, how stories are told. And it's interesting because when we talk about artificial intelligence, a lot of people don't even, first of all, understand what it is, basically. And a lot of people also think about it in a negative, in the negative light. Artificial intelligence is going to take our jobs. It's going to, disrupt a lot of things. And yes, it will disrupt some things, but there are also some positives that come with artificial intelligence, which I think is also should be part of where the focus would be. So first of all, artificial intelligence obviously is expanding. It's going to help media organizations expand reach. It's going to sort of democratize news because, when everybody has a phone, has access to the internet, then they have access to publish news. But on the flip side of it, one of the things that we should be wary of and we should be careful of is also that it's also the issue of accuracy, the issue of privacy, the issue of transparency. Because if everybody can tell news, if everybody can publish news using technology and using media, then we should question, be careful what news we're consuming and the accuracy of such news, and also, of course, the reliability as well. So that's one thing that I think we should be careful of in terms of the negatives. But also, the fact that with the rise of social media platforms, it's also the fact that the rise of technology and the rise of provision of news using AI. It's also the issue where we should worry about how reliable the news is. There's this conversation all around it, and even in CGID we talk a lot about fake news. We talk about deep fakes, using AI tools and AI sources to manipulate and to drive misinformation, disinformation, and false news. And so that's also one part of the conversation that we should focus on as media organizations, as media people, is how are we able to then use technology and AI for the benefit to curb fake news, and not just to sort of drive it. Yeah, that's one of the things that we're doing even as CGID with I heard you talk about the tools that we are launching on the 27th. We're launching 2 AI tools under our Dubawa program. And the first is the Dubawa audio platform, which essentially is useful in transcribing radio. Because one thing we find is that in Africa, for example, many people actually listen to radio more than we know. And radio is that one platform that, it can penetrate even in the most remote areas. And so because radio is an important tool, it's also it's also a platform where a lot of misinformation can happen.
All right, so, I want to clarify something. I get how interesting the whole concept is, but is AI and fake news, how much of a problem is it in the information that we consume on different platforms in Nigeria today or across the continent? Are you seeing a spike in fake news being, of course, created by AI and the likes? And is this the reason why the Dubawa project is coming up with this? Because there's people who would argue that it's not a major problem. I mean, it does exist, but it's not a major problem.
Yeah, no, I think that's one thing we should also talk about a lot often. It is a major problem. It is something that is on the rise every day. Of course, with the rise of technology and artificial intelligence comes also with the rise of fake news. So, for example, in political seasons, and election is a big part of them. It is a time where political campaigns, there's a lot of fake news that circulates during political campaigns of what the candidate is or what the candidate is not, of what the candidate has said or has done. That's one good example where we can see how people manipulate pictures, for example, how people manipulate videos, and say this is what this politician said when it might not be what the politician said. And so that's one typical example of how in the Nigerian context, in the African context, an election just happened in Senegal, and we were on ground and we saw some trends of misinformation as well. And there are a lot of cases like that, especially during campaign season. So that's one example I can point you to where fake news continues to be on the rise, where people tweet things, where people use sort of Photoshop pictures and videos and claim that it's true, that's what somebody said. And that is a serious concern for us as an organization, and I mean it should be for everyone in the media ecosystem, of what actually is true and what is not, and how we're using AI and technology to advance this.
All right. Tell us a little bit more about the Dubawa project and what's happening in the next couple of days.
Okay. So the Dubawa project is a fact-checking and media literacy program of the Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development. And what we really do with the project is to promote media literacy to curb and tackle fake news across West Africa. And we have a launch of 2 AI tools at our Journalism Digital Tech and AI conference happening on Monday, the 27th. And just to talk a little bit about the platforms again, the first is the Dubawa AI platform, and the second is the chatbot. What the chatbot would do really is to provide live updates on WhatsApp, of news, of questions that people have about the veracity of news. It's really the sort of a typical chatbot that you see around. So we really want to use that to curb fake news. Another thing, like I was talking about, is the Dubawa AI platform, where what it essentially do is to transcribe radio recording into text, and then to spot out what's fake and what's true from that transcription, and provide the accurate information.
All right. We look forward to seeing the impact that this will have, and we certainly wish you all the best with the event in the coming days.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
All right. And thank you very much for joining us on this day's episode of Breakfast Central. As we wrap up, I'd like to use this medium to extend my condolences to the Otto family as they lay their father to rest, to Otto Orandam and Otto Cannon as they lay their father to rest, hoping that you're able to power through the next couple of days, and wishing you all the best going forward, and that his legacy lives on through you and the rest of your family. And that's how we wrap up today's edition of Breakfast Central. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaogi Ogbowan. Wishing you a brilliant day ahead. We'll be back here again tomorrow morning on Breakfast Central. Bye for now.